Gregor, so what's your association with Fitzroy?
I'm a resident. I've only been living here for 4 years.
Yeah.
4 years is quite a chapter in my life, though, I suppose. So I identify pretty strongly with the area.
Yeah. Where did you come from before?
I've always lived south of the Yarra.
Yeah.
And most of my friends have been south of the Yarra. That's where I've shopped. I've always shopped pretty locally.
Yeah.
Consumed my entertainment pretty locally.
Yeah.
And I've now been living up here for 4 years, into my third shared rental house.
Yeah. And what do you like about Fitzroy as opposed to other parts of the city you've lived in?
I find myself wherever I live, that's where I identify and make the most of, and you find that's your home anyhow.
Yeah.
But so it'd be false to say that I'm here just because Fitzroy is the greatest.
Yeah.
I'd find things to like about wherever it was that I was living.
Yeah.
But Fitzroy does offer me quite a few things that I really dig. Like I'm very much into organic food and alternative health.
Yeah.
But not the American sort of wanky driven one, but more a grassroots variety of that.
Yeah.
And Fitzroy is good for that. There's at least three organic health food shops here.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of associated with Friends of the Earth, do a bit of work there.
Yeah.
And I've got a local gym, a very daggy, low-key one.
Yeah.
I can eat locally, buy my food locally.
Yeah.
And when I'm on the street, I have a sense of that it's a community I can identify with.
Yeah.
More because of its diversity than anything else.
Yeah. So it's the diversity and the alternative. No.
Oh, definitely.
The culture of Fitzroy.
When I say I could probably be happy in any suburb, maybe that isn't true. I think I'd get quite aggravated and stressed if I was in a suburb where everything seemed homogenous.
Yeah.
And straight and clean.
Yeah.
And in fact, now that I think about it, what always puts a big smile on my face walking down around Fitzroy is alternative youth culture.
Yeah.
And also the freaks and deros, because really, if you those people who consume mainstream culture are being homogenized into one lifestyle of consumption,
Yeah.
of aspiring to particular clothing, food, lifestyle ideals. And so whenever I see someone walking down the street staggering around, dragging their shopping trolley, and they've managed to survive outside of that, I congratulate them, and it gives me a warm inner glow to think that some people have managed to escape the net.
Yeah.
Of uniformity.
So what do you think is attractive for? Why do you think people would want to move to Fitzroy?
Fitzroy's certain periods in history, I suppose, have experienced heydays. Maybe the hippie period.
Yeah.
Was probably much more fun for people to live through that than someone who just lived through the mid-80s.
Yeah.
And probably the punk period, which I tailed on, was just a fantastic period. And similar to periods, I suppose, where you might live, there might be a similar experience happening. And maybe Fitzroy is during a cusp like that at the moment, because things are very transient. The things that people like about Fitzroy and decry about losing, well, it's only been like that for maybe a decade, and it always changes. But yeah, okay, so what is it? Well, you've still got enough ethnicity, and they've brought all their interesting food, and the little hole in the wall shops that you like your local cobbler and your local barber. And then there's all the restaurants, so it's good food around here, lots of not any ethnic, but generally pretty good food.
Yeah.
There's a couple of band venues, at least 4 band venues that I go to and drink and have beer at, lots of good pubs.
Yeah.
You got to stay on your toes to visit each one just once a year. Alternative clothing and alternative music and youth culture.
Yeah.
A vibrant art scene.
Yeah.
Graffiti that shows that there's people who are questioning. There's campuses, Collingwood campus. So all of that just adds a really great atmosphere. It's things that I'm looking for anyhow.
Yeah. And so what sort of things do you think promote an alternative culture to the Australian mainstream? How do you think a suburb like this does that?
Yeah, how do a group of free thinkers congregate in one area? Where does the critical mass arise from?
Yeah. Is there any catalysts, you think?
Yeah, I suppose there'd have to be a number of features that would attract them. And I'd say the first thing it has to be reasonably low rent.
Yeah.
It's probably the case that your alternative free thinkers and your radicals, look, in my experience, they're generally people who have the time and to enjoy that sort of lifestyle of people who are probably upper middle class and not so concerned by where their next dollar is going to come from. They can go to university and rally against the mainstream because they don't have to be desperately trying to get work. So it's going to be close to where the universities are in a city because they're consumers of pop culture, and that's where the galleries and that's where the pubs and stuff are. So the catalysts are cheap housing in a city.
Yeah.
I reckon that's the start.
So what sort of things do you not like about Fitzroy? The negative aspects or the dangers you see?
I'm really reluctant to say that the dangers are the yuppification because, that is the danger to Fitzroy as it was, but 40 years ago or 30 years ago, other people were enjoying Fitzroy and it doesn't exist for them. Before the artists and the bohemians came in, Greeks and Italians probably had a really thriving local community where they could stand on their porch and their country folk would be walking past daily and they'd wave and say hello to each other and do the shopping. My old house in Napier Street, we lived next door to a Greek couple. Yeah, and she used to stand, we had a tiny little front of our house before the street, and she used to stand there, sweeping a little bit of cement and looking at the passers-by, but none of them knew her. Whereas I think previously they all would have known each other and they'd have all gone for coffee. So we've spoilt that for them, and it's a changing suburb. But since I happen to like it as it is at the moment.
Yeah.
The one group of people who have moved in here, but to my mind who don't really add anything to the feel of the place, are the more wealthy individuals who live here. It seems to me they just go to work, park their cars in their garages, and live in their apartments. But I suppose that which I value most highly is creativity, and I don't see how they express their creativity or lend their creativity to the suburb. So that's a threat, and also. Overwhelmingly, people want to live in the inner city. That's where the better infrastructure is, and it's money which allows you to do that. And prices are going up. I've moved house 3 times now, and this last time we looked for a very long time, and eventually had to move to North Fitzroy and pay a lot more rent because we couldn't find a place in Fitzroy that we could afford. So it'll be like Greenwich Village. The people will move in because they like elements of the community, and then they'll push out those elements that they like. In other words, the bohemians.
Yeah. So, what do you understand about globalisation? What's your position on it, Gregor?
On its most simplistic level, and it's perhaps even before the term globalisation.
Yeah.
Was bandied around as much, and it's such a broad term now. But I suppose for the things that I value culturally and artistically and creatively, what I'm into is diversity, and what I hate to see is homogeneity. And so, to me, globalisation, the most negative impacts or potential impacts of that are just homogeneity, where we just become consumers of or exposed to limited either lifestyle or consumer choices, and things get packaged away in that manner. And it seems that globalisation is harmful to communities. And communities can be, on a macro or micro stage. You could be talking about Fitzroy as a community, or community might be an entire country.
So in Fitzroy, how would you see globalisation manifesting itself in a negative way?
I suppose the people who interesting enough, there's two people who are probably participants in globalisation, and I'm actually not particularly one of them, because I do live very much locally in that, you know, I don't really shop at supermarkets or any mainstream stores. I just buy food at, you know, I just buy what I need in small places, and I consume my art and my pleasures in, you know, in a very local manner. But yeah, the two people who probably, interesting enough, consume it the most would be probably, if we think as young alternative university people, they're huge uptakers of global technologies and the internet.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the others, I would say, are your more mainstream consumers of lifestyle and consumer products, and they are increasingly coming into the area.
Yeah.
So I suppose if you look at the younger alternative artistic people, globalisation is, I wonder if they're deluding themselves, but they probably seek to use globalisation as a means to disseminate alternative information and participate more broadly in art and creativity,
yeah.
and be able to express that.
Yeah.
But
so you see almost two tensions there, one is globalisation